Cool, guys. Thanks for coming with so many people at our workshop. I hope you enjoyed the first part with Usama. My name is Baltazar. I've been working at the family for the past 6 years, and I've helped a lot of entrepreneurs go from the ID phase to the initial go-to-market, checking whether they have product market fit, and then actually scaling their go-to-market efforts. And in this hour, I want to share a lot of the things that I've learned working with all these founders. First thing is the basics. What is go-to-market? Go-to-market is three things, especially in B2B. It's one, to define who is your customer. So that's, we're going to go into this in much detail. Second, to figure out how you can actually talk to these customers. And the third part will be how do you scale your go-to-market efforts, which metrics to use, how to guarantee that you're on the right track. We'll focus more on the number one and number two, because in my experience, is where founders actually have most of the problems. When it comes to scaling, you can often ask experts that have already done it to help you streamline the process. So as a basics, the product has to be good. It's very, very difficult to sell a bad product. And it's actually one of the main dangers of sales. I've experienced with a lot of founders at the family that are so good at sales that they're able to sell a very bad product to anyone. And because everyone buys it, they're not able to realize that the product is bad. But the first thing you need to do is to be very, very conscious about what you're selling. Is the product you're building actually useful for someone? And to do that, you need to focus on the buyer persona, is defining exactly who's going to buy the product, how they're going to use it, what pain it solves for them, what they had to do before your solution existed. And never forget, good numbers doesn't mean the product is good. It can go up for time, and then you realize that the product was just a nice to have, but it was trendy, and then it starts to leak. So always come back to the product. To do that, you need to go deeper on the persona. Every time I talk to startups, they tell me, oh yeah, my product is amazing. I ask them who they need to sell to, and they say startups. But startups is not a market. Startup is maybe a market in the US, but even there, you would need to go much, much, much more in detail. You need to understand if it's the CEO, the CMO, the developers, or someone else at the company that buys it. You need to understand if you're selling to the very tech-friendly company that is just started, or you won't need to talk to the company that already have hundreds of engineers and is going to scale their engineering platform. You need to understand what your users do, how they care about the product you're building. And you need to force yourself to go into such detail to really understand how to sell your product to them. As you have already heard, and I'm pretty sure Usama mentioned it, the best salespeople ask questions. They're not trying to sell any product to anyone. If you do go that way, you'll also be able to figure out the willingness to pay of your users, which will help you greatly figure out what the right pricing is. And we'll go much deeper into pricing in probably something like half an hour, but it's an important thing to do. And then the last thing to look at is what you need to watch out for. You need to understand the structure of the company you're buying into to figure out whether your users need the approval of their manager, they need the approval of finance, they need the approval of the CEO to actually start using your product. To define all these persona, you have different tools. Some are qualitative, it can be interviews, customer days, going at their office, or they can be quantitative. So that would be surveys, A/B testing, etc. At the early stages of the company, I believe that you should go qualitative. The more friction you have, the more you talk to your users, the more you will learn. But it's a difficult subject. Often I see founders that go and ask questions to the potential buyers of the product and always get the answer they want. Because of course, if you're asking someone, would it be better if the price is lower? Everyone is going to answer yes. Plus, people have a tendency to be nice. They don't want to tell you that your product sucks. So every time you ask your mother, you ask your friends whether they think your startup is a great idea, everyone's going to say yes. The truth is, nobody thinks it's a great idea. Otherwise, they would be asking you to work in the company. They would be asking you to invest. So learn how to ask the right questions and figure out if what you're building is actually solving a pain, and try to commit everyone you talk to helping you. So ask them to do an intro, ask them to use the product for a while, and make sure that they have it. So you define your persona in much detail, which will allow you to craft the right narrative to start selling. A good product is a product that sells without sales, but that doesn't mean you're never going to have sales. Organic is the best channel because it's the only one that allows you to be sure that you actually have product market fit. If the product is shitty, but you have amazing salespeople, you're going to close deals, but these clients are not going to refer other clients. So always keep an eye on the organic channel. How many referrals do you get from your existing clients? How much inbound do you get? And some of the best companies in the world, like Stripe, are still mainly inbound driven, which is pretty amazing for a $100 billion company. But I have never met a client of Stripe that isn't happy about the product that they've built. And all of this doesn't mean you shouldn't do sales. The best companies have incredible product that have incredible organic growth, but they still push more to grow faster. All the other channels are good. So you've got a good product, it sells organically, and then you need to find the right channels to actually push your clients to the user base. Everything works, everything can work, and nothing is too stupid. So you need to build a process where you experiment a lot. What I recommend to founders is to write down 10 different experiments that they think could land them clients Sunday evening, and to test all of them during the week. You spend 2 hours per channel, and you see what works and what doesn't. You do all of that in a very manual way. Don't try to optimize anything. If you think writing directly to people on LinkedIn works, just select 50 profiles, write to them one by one, and wait for the answer. At the end of the week, you can recap all of these experiments and see what worked and what didn't. If something worked, you put it back next week. But this time, instead of trying to send 50 messages, you try to send 100. And at one point, you're probably going to automate all these tasks. You automate it with tools, you automate it with code, and it becomes an okay channel to find clients. Everything is smart. Do 10 every week and you'll figure out something. And don't forget, email is one of the things that really work. People still do read some of the emails, and you're always too shy. Every entrepreneur I know is saying that they're going to max out their email capacity, and they send probably 100 per day, 100 per week, 100 per day if we're lucky. When a company like Nestor that we had was sending 15,000 a day, and it worked. Be aggressive. People are going to tell you if they don't want to hear from you anymore. Once you've tried all these different channels and you actually try to find, you start figuring out something that lends you first contacts with clients, don't worry, scale it. And it's okay if it works, if it represents 90% of your acquisition process. Most of the early stage companies only find one thing that really works, and then they keep experimenting until they find the second one, and they keep experimenting until they find the third one. Don't be too worried about channel dependency in the beginning. One of the very important things that I tell founders is that at the beginning, you need to optimize for learnings. So it's always the CEO that needs to do the sales. When I say CEO, it can be another co-founder, but it's always one of the founders, because with every interaction that you're going to have with the buyer, you're going to improve your knowledge of the problem you're solving, and you're going to be able to transform the narrative of how you sell, but you're also going to be able to transform the product you're actually building. And it's this close contact with clients that will help you build something meaningful. And so you see founder do sales, constantly ask questions to user, always ask how their organization works, how much time it saves them, when did they use the product, have they pushed your product to other colleagues, why would they not recommend your product to other companies. Always do that effort to really nail the problem you're solving. And if you do this and you scale a little bit, you can hire salespeople. In the beginning, I would not recommend hiring sales until you know how to sell very well yourself as a founder. The founders of Algolia went to more than $1 million in ARR, not recruiting any sales. And it's the same for most of the great companies that I know. But the day you actually bring in sales, they of course will help you maximize the impact of your company. But don't forget to keep salespeople in product meetings, because salespeople are the ones that keep the contact with the clients that you're selling to. And they will help you refine the product and adjust the roadmap. And so one of the consequences of all of this, which is probably very unintuitive in beginnings, is that I recommend every founder to increase the friction to buy, not to decrease the friction. You much rather have a client that wants to sign up for your product, but you force him to talk to you for 20 minutes before he's able to buy, and rather than someone that just clicks, pays, uses the product for a week and drops. If you talk to them, you're going to help them understand the value of the product much better, and you're going to understand their problem much better. A very good example of this is what Superhuman did. They're just a simple mail client, and so everyone understand what mail a client is. It looks like Gmail, it looks like any other email app that you had. But with Superhuman, you had to talk for 30 minutes to one of their sales representatives. It actually works as an onboarding process, and you should always try to do this. Try to increase the number of touch points that you have with your clients. And this is also true with customer support, which is not the topic of this talk, but customer support is an incredibly important part of the business, because it is one of the feedback loop on how people use the product. The second thing that I want to tell you is to be super hands-on. There is no sales that is easy in the beginning of your company. And so beyond just talking to 20 or 30 minutes every single customer that wants to sign up, go much further. The Stripe founder coined what they call the collision method, which is if you wanted to integrate payments in your business, they would ask you to give your computer to them, and they would log into your GitHub, and they would actually do all the implementation themselves. And 1 hour later, you would be set up with Stripe. That's the most efficient sales thing you can do. But of course, it doesn't scale. But it doesn't need to scale. In the beginning, you want to optimize for learnings, as I said before. And the other thing you need to do is to do 10 times more than competition. Your competition is probably more experienced. They have a product that is more stable. They've been on the market for years. They're the safe bet. If you want customers to trust you and to give a shot at what you're doing, you need to be much more than that. So you need to build all the marketing materials for them. You need to interview the users of your product in their company, do the transcripts, and give them to the manager that has to decide. You can give them t-shirts. You need to be supportive. You need to be there 24/7 for them. Just the level of intensity with which you're going to try to target them is going to be so important. it won't scale, it won't last forever, but you'll get tons of learning, and you'll set up the right culture to then have many more salespeople in your team. One of the other important thing is to try to catch customers when they're actually searching for your product. Of course, everything we said before, you're like shooting arrows in the dark, but there are a few customers that really know what they want, and you should try to find them. There are different ways to do that, but the most efficient one is to become famous. So try to become an influencer. Yes, I mean influencer in the way like becoming an Instagram influencer if you were doing fashion, but if it's your industry, you just need to become someone that is considered knowledgeable on the product he tackles. So be aggressive on Twitter, on Quora, on whatever platform where your users are talking, and become someone. Then you focus on writing a lot of content. People are going to search for the solution that you have. They're going to land on your blog, and they're going to contact you. And when they do so, they're much more susceptible to become clients because they already know what you're doing. And the third step is to start to have reviews on all the websites that gather software products or B2B products. It's a little long and a little expensive at the very beginning, but a bit later it helps for the credibility, and it helps to bring a few of the leads that are very hot and that are easier to convert. Another point that I find really important and that is overlooked by founders is to build a brand. Your company is just a company that nobody knows, which is good. And you need to remember that you can launch your product multiple times. Everybody will have forgotten the first launch. And if it's an easy way to gather people, do it. But this brand is going to help you sell to people because it's going to reassure them. And so even if in general, looking for credibility is something that kills most startups because they try to gain their legitimacy by bringing someone else in the business, it does help to have a good brand, and it does help to have social proof. And so in terms of social proof, the only one that I consider really good would be to have other clients that actually use your product and they are much more knowledgeable than the client you're actually targeting. So if you're selling software for developer tools and you have Stripe as a client, you're pretty sure that you're going to get the first meetings with most of the startups in the Silicon Valley. If you're the second type of social proof that you can have is to get incredible investors. Those investors, if they bet on you, they're a signal to the market and they're a signal to the buyers that you're actually not going to die in the next 2 years. People underestimate that the difficulty of selling when you're not showing to the market that you might live for more than the next couple months. No buyer wants to start working with you, show their managers that they actually made a risky bet by choosing a tiny startup that is doing software, and then come back to them a couple of days later saying, oh, they actually went under, founder decided to stop, ran out of money. So you need to build a brand that says, we're going to be transformative for our industry. We're going to be here for the next 10 years. Please stay with us. Another super interesting thing that I see almost no founder do in the beginning is to praise their clients. Your clients are the lifeblood of your business. They're the ones that are using the product. They're the ones telling you what to change. And they're also, of course, the one paying for the product. So you need to respect your clients as much as you can. And when they're buying your product, they're buying two things. They're buying utility because your product solves one of the problem. And maybe they're also buying status. They want to say that they found this innovative solution and then this new startup that is going to change the way the industry works. And because of that, you want to reward them. So you can reward them by writing content that says how amazing your clients are. You don't need to name them for that part, but you can just define the problems and how important they are. So if you look at Airbnb founders, they're always praising the supply side, meaning the hosts that have apartments all around the blog or around the world, and most of the great companies do so. Even if you're doing boring B2B SaaS products, but by boring I mean what people expect to be boring industry, I think it's really important that you say that your clients are amazing. I've had the example of a SaaS software called Clio. They're doing software for lawyers in the US, and like random mom and pop shop, and that has like 1 or 2 lawyers. These lawyers basically don't have anyone that says they're great. Clio is organizing a conference every year that brings 5,000 clients on a show that is Las Vegas style. And every lawyer that goes there feels so special because he's been invited, and tells every other lawyer they should become Clio clients just to go to that conference. You can't do that when you're the very, very early stage, but you can do things that are much more simple. For example, having a weekly client of the week email that goes out to all the client base and says, oh, this client based in Iowa actually use our product in a very interesting way. He grew his clientele, but this. You have a few quotes. Your client is going to feel loved, and other clients are going to be willing to show you love, to have this exposure in newsletter. Never forget your clients. They're the people that are going to be there for you. If you do all of this correctly, when you come to the buyer and you are doing one of the first sales, you often feel very weak. Every time I see founders, they're like, should I make the product free because I need my first client? Should I accept this, or this term? And the answer is probably yes, but you should never behave in that way. When you go see clients, you need to reverse the power, and you need to make them feel like they're lucky to work with you. If you've done the work of building a brand correctly, they already thinking that you might be the next big startup success. And for buyers to actually start working with you early on might be a privilege. That's how you want to make them feel. Of course, it's difficult, but you need to remember that you can play with their own psychology to do so. If you're telling people that you only choosing 2 or 3 partners during the first year to actually build a product with them to perfectly fit it to their needs, they might want to be in these 2 or 3. You want to build some FOMO. It's 2, 3 now, no clients for the next 9 months. And of course, if it works super fine, you'll get other clients in these next 9 months. But you want to create some sort of urgency for people to buy. I'll go through a first breaking Q&A if everyone's here. Is Usama coming back?
Of course, I'm coming back. Close your slide.
Oh yeah.
So now again on the screen. So I answer some question. I have one from Caris. We will start by a question. I replied with a joke. Didn't take my joke. So the question is how all this advice apply to consulting business?
In consulting businesses, there is one big difference, which is that you sell your time, and so you can't sell your time multiple times. So you need to be much more selective about the type of clients that you accept, because you're going to spend your days with them. So focus on as for other type of sales, it's a numbers game. Talk to as many people as possible in the beginning. Some of them are going to be convinced, and you're not going to need too much work to start working with them. And only work with them if you think that are clients that are going to learn you something and you're going to enjoy working with.
Cool. What is a good go-to-market strategy for software project management tool?
You need to figure out who are people that actually need a software project management tool. You have like 10 different ones that are on the market. So figure out why they're not happy with what exists. If you need to find a niche and build a few features that are specific for that, do it. Otherwise, just reach out to every client that has one of these tools and sell it to them. It might be a very good opportunity. 1% of Salesforce is a $2 billion company. So there is definitely room for like smaller versions of horizontal plays.
Yeah. The advice are the same for a product and a service?
I would say for the go-to-market, they're pretty similar, except that you probably need to restrain yourself to a geography that's much closer to you. If you're building a product that needs to be sold in the US, I would recommend selling to the US day one from France. If you're doing a service business in the UK, you're probably going to sell in the UK only.
What is a good go-to-market strategy? How to test a market which has higher barrier, higher cost of license, higher administrative cost, for example, company or anything. So how do you manage barrier to entry when you start?
So I guess the first question is to ask whether you want to start spending money to build this business because it has high barriers to entry. So I think doing a lot of qualitative interviews with your customers would work, and try to get people to pay before the product exists. Very strong belief we have at the family is that it's easier to sell something that doesn't exist than something that does exist. Because once you show people the product, they actually see why they don't want to use it. When you're telling them it doesn't exist, they're just dreaming of everything it's going to solve for them, and they're super excited. It's like you was a Tinder date.
Doing things that don't scale, how to get your foot in the door and get actual face-to-face time with your potential customer?
Be creative. I think we have a company that did something very funny. They were absolutely unknown in the medical industry, and Usama told them, guys, you should organize a conference with the best experts in the world. So of course that was pre-COVID, so you could do this in real life, but they invited 20 of the most prestigious people in the industry and all got them in the same room. And of course they were doing the introduction keynote, the middle keynote, and the end keynote. And like this, they started conversation with 30 experts in their industry face to face and had something to offer. Just figure out how to be, just be creative.
Yeah. That idea, by the way, came from the inspiration of the guy that created a restaurant to be number one on
TripAdvisor.
TripAdvisor without opening the restaurant. It inspired me so much that I got this idea. But yeah, be creative. Don't be shy. Again.
Never be shy.
Yeah, never be shy.
But when people tell you no, just stop. Like after, don't stop right away. But like if they're telling you you're annoying, stop.
It's like consent. Any kind of consent. You need to be smart about how you push and how sometimes you don't push. But being shy is deciding for others, and you should never decide for others.
Yeah. And for outbound emailing at Oracle, they do 13 emails before stopping. So you can go.
Yeah, that's cool. Selling to very small business in order to invest to the feedback and development of the product is a good thing to target bigger business in the future and compete against bigger competitors. You understand?
Yeah, so I think it's very interesting in the beginning to have multiple clients because you're going to learn more from the different use cases that you have with them rather than focusing on one larger client. So definitely,
No, go.
So definitely targeting the these clients is useful, but don't go for the super small clients if your real market is the large clients. It still needs to be in the same buying persona.
Yeah. Someone is asking me because someone asked me when you were talking about how do you do a good marketplace, and I said fake a bit the demand and be good at selling to create FOMO. It's not hard to do the successful souffle of entrepreneurship. Of course, be supply driven, but you need also a bit of demand. And so it's like when you are cooking, you need to feel it, and fake the demand means that sometimes to start, you need to be your own demand, and you need to find a way to make the client happy at the beginning.
Yeah. Marketplaces are an incredible business model when they work, but at the beginning they're incredibly difficult because you don't control the prices and you don't control the margins. So you have zero leverage on how to sell.
Yeah.
And so usually people fake the demand or the supply.
Yeah. Sylvain is asking you, you said a salesperson should be recruited on a later stage. If a senior sales want to join while you are starting your launch, would you recommend to tell him to come back later?
Yes, I think it's if you don't know what you're selling, I think you should say no. It's whatever the experience of the person. If you want to hire someone, hire SDRs, and I'll talk about it afterwards.
I find it very difficult to find balance between selling the product vision to create excitement and desirability and keeping it at the MVP level and focusing on that on the first step, but the MVP may not be as exciting.
This is always true, but what gets people excited is movement. If you come with an MVP that solves a tiny problem and 2 weeks later it's solving a tiny problem plus another tiny problem, and it keeps moving like this, clients are going to trust you. It's much better than seeing a platform that has multiple features that don't really work well.
Yeah. On a two-side marketplace, do you need to reach a level of user before spend time on the owner of tool to charge them with CPC affiliation, blah, blah, blah? Julien Ewing.
So I'm not sure I get the question.
So I will rephrase it. How big do you need to be before spending time to develop your own payment system, your own affiliation platform, your own things like that?
So I think for the start of your business, you need to figure out whether you have product market fit and whether you charge people 20% or 18% doesn't change much. You need to verify that the demand wants to buy what your supply has to offer, and that you actually are able to provide the liquidity. And once you start to have this liquidity and you're sure about what the business model is, you can start focusing on monetization, whether it's building your own insurance product, payments, blah, 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 to gain more money, or whether it's to just start scaling different channels.
Yasmin is asking if you can test the shisha on my table, only if you bet me with the chess that is in front of it. A question you will like: how do you make money selling a SaaS to a restaurant? The SaaS is helping improving their ordering system, organizing their shift, or setting up a reservation at the table.
So a few years ago, I talked to the founder of La Fourchette, and what he was telling me is, Balthazar, it's as difficult to sell a software for 70 euros a month to a restaurateur than to sell Airbus to a country. So maybe you should sell Airbus.
I was here at the lunch.
Yeah, probably. But no, go to get them one by one. They're going to pay 30 euros. It's going to be highly unprofitable in the beginning. And once you start to have a few hundreds, everything will start to be easier.
Customers are so important, as you said. Should we recruit a person to focus 100% on customer support when we launch, as we get more and more customers?
I think the best practice I've seen in the beginning is to have everyone in the company be involved in customer support. so that everyone has a view of how users behave and what they understand and what they don't understand. And when you grow, you would still keep like, I know companies that have something called Members Day, where like half a day every month you are supposed to do customer support. And I think it's a really good practice to have on top of professionals, customer reps.
Cool. If you are building an hardware company, don't do that. And let's say you are prototyping phase, what should be the best strategy to reach, engage your first customer, given that the prototype you build is far from having the design of your final product? Should you wait to get a better design or start selling it as it is by giving your customers the opportunity to use it right now and get feedbacks?
I think there was something magical that happened, which was Kickstarter. So you can validate that people actually want the product that is finished, which is a good validation and probably a little bit of money. And in the meantime, you should try to get it in the hands of most of the people, everyone you can find. The people that are most impressive with hardware these days are the people in Shenzhen, because they're building a new version every 2 weeks and they give it to people just outside of the factory, and they iterate on hardware as fast as people iterate on software. So
even faster than some of the people we know on software.
Yes, definitely. So if you can try to have that mindset, do it. Like, put it in the hands of people, see how they behave, and go back to the drawing table.
Should you switch your product focus when you have many clients that use your product but spend limited budget with you, and suddenly you sign a massive client that use the product in a very different way? That's a typical office hour case. So what do we do, Dr. Balthazar?
That's a very difficult question to answer. I would first, you need to convince yourself that the problem you're solving for the large client is more important than the problem you're solving for the long tail of clients. Because if you're listening to your clients is not always the best thing to do. Of course, you need to adapt to build a product they want. But large corporations might force you to build a thing that only works for them. And you definitely don't want to become a service provider with the salary of a founder.
Is that a must to test the market? For example, the product is already highly implemented in the market. So is it always necessary to test the market?
Sometimes you know that the market exists. I don't know if it's blue or red ocean, it's one of the two. And you have people that just do a better version of a product that already exists, and that can be huge successes. A very good recent example of that would be Zoom. Experienced founder, knows how to build SaaS, knows how to do B2B go-to-market, built a better experience than Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, or Skype, and he didn't have to test that the market existed.
Yeah. Loic, how not to be shy at the beginning? Does having a product help?
Being confident about what you're selling helps. Some people can be very confident with wind, and some need more product. And if you need a product, I would advise that you go out a bit sooner than you would want to.
Okay, guys. Time to wrap up. Time to go in the. Thank you, Balthazar. It was great. I learned many things. What you can do now, everyone, is go to.
I have a second part.
Ah, you have the second part. Sorry, I forget that.
No
I was
worries.
thinking you were doing a new one. Okay, go ahead. Perfect.
Is it presenting now?
No.
Okay. Oh yeah, I know. I've seen how to do it. Okay. Now it should work, right? Is it working? Yes. Cool. So Yes, we did a Q&A break in the middle of the presentation because we actually like interacting with all of you. It's our way to ask questions and listen to our users. One of the very important parts for founders when they're doing sales is to optimize their time. And it came up in the questions. I said that founders need to do the sales, but it can become really draining to find the targets, to contact them, to figure out the first meeting, to prepare the marketing materials, and to actually see them. It's something that you need to do early on in the business. But as soon as you grow a little bit, you'll understand that getting clients is a numbers game. You need to contact a lot of potential clients. Some of them are going to convert much more easily than others. And if you find the one that says, oh, I completely get what you're building, I want to sign up, you'll be super happy. So just put enough numbers. But to have all these people in your pipeline and actually talking to them, you probably are going to need some help. So I would recommend to hire SDRs. SDRs are the people that do the first calls to clients, that ask a lot of questions for you to understand exactly what the client wants. And then they set up a meeting with the sales. And the sales is the founder. And you'll be able to go from having one meeting a day doing everything yourself to probably having 2 or 3 doing everything with 1 or 2 SDRs. That way, you'll keep control of the conversation with the clients. You'll never lose that feedback loop on the product, but you'll gain a lot of time. Another very important thing regarding this is that fortune is in the follow-up. You need to track your emails, and you need to send second emails to people that haven't answered for 2-3 days. There are tools to do this, but every great salesperson knows that you need to hustle to get the clients. You can watch videos from the founder of Close.io. He's a bit aggressive, but after you watch a video, you feel like you should stop watching your series and actually start hustling. A very important counter argument to that is to know when to fold. If you're talking to clients, you need to know when you're losing your time. And you need to know when you actually might be able to secure a client. In our case, for example, when we were fundraising for the family, sometimes we came to investors in the first 10 minutes, they would say there is no money in startups. That was enough for us to know that we will never get them as investors and just say, okay, thank you, sorry for the bothering, it's not going to be a match, and we leave. It's the same for you when you talk to clients. So you need to figure out whether they're actively searching for something like you have to offer, whether they have a budget to pay for it, and who they need to convince internally to start using your product. Never forget to ask these type of questions. You don't want to maximize the conversion rate from leads to clients. You want to optimize for your time, and that means that sometimes you need to drop some of the leads, which is really easy to do if you're talking to a lot of leads. If you're only talking to 2-3 leads, of course you want to close them all. So broaden the pipe and focus on the ones that do understand what you're doing, that are searching, that have the money, and that don't need a very complicated approval system. The other thing that is going to be slightly repetitive, but I want to emphasize on it, is that you need to own your strategy. When you're building a startup, there are 2 things. There's a strategy and the opportunities. The strategy is the success of your company if nobody helps you. It's you that own the keys to the success. And the opportunities are everything that could happen on the way, and of course you take. You need to own your strategy, meaning you should never give the keys of the company to someone else. So when you start, that means that the founders are doing the sales. They're not giving the keys to salespeople because salespeople will come back saying, oh, the product lacks this, lacks that. And you're going to take a lot of time to figure out whether what they're saying is true or whether it's because they are not good salespeople, which is something that happens to every company that goes international. They hire a GM that does the sales and says, oh, in this market, it works completely differently than in your own market. The product needs to change. So founders do need to do the sales. Other thing is that partners are never good at selling. In the beginning of your company, it's difficult to close clients yourselves. If you can't do it, don't expect an integrator, a software provider, or someone else to close for you. It's at the maximum they can do co-selling, meaning that they are introducing you to clients and you're doing the closing yourselves. We're invested in a company called Algolia. They're selling a search API. They're valued around $1 billion. And they start doing co-selling now after 8 years. They still don't get anyone else to sell their products for them. In the same way, channels are for later. It's very difficult to find partners that distribute to their clients, and to finish, partnerships never work. We've seen so many startups come to us and say, oh, it's amazing. This large company is going to do a partnership with us. We're going to co-sell our offers together. We're going to bundle. It's going to be amazing. It never, ever works. You're always tricked into thinking it's going to work, but at the end, you mostly lose your time. So focus on going direct and focus on sales yourself. One of the things I want to talk about is pricing. It comes all the time. It comes up all the time for B2B companies. And first thing I want you to remember is that pricing will change many times. So you don't need to do a super complicated pricing plan at the very beginning of your company. You don't need to do payments per minute, payments per this, 3 different plans. Keep it super simple, get people to pay. At the beginning, you don't really know what value people extract from your product. So you don't really know how you're going to be able to price it. So start simple, then you'll be able to go up. I often get mocked by entrepreneurs because I always tell them to double their prices. And it's true that early on, founders tend to undersell themselves because they just think that the clients would never pay more. Try to double your prices. You'll be surprised. You probably are going to be able to sell at these prices. Try to double them again and again and again. In the same spirit, when you're doing proof concepts with larger clients, don't do them for free. You need to make people pay, because clients that pay ask for more. If they get the product for free, they're not going to tell you if it doesn't work. They're not going to be very demanding. So always make clients pay. And when you're working with large companies, be sure that the proof of concept could lead to a much bigger product, because these corporates are paid to test new solutions, but it's very different from a worldwide implementation. And the last thing regarding pricing is to tell you, when you're doing B2B, it's okay to do service. It's okay to sell formation in French, which is like helping people, teaching people how to use your product. It's okay to sell implementation. It's okay for many, many different reasons. It's just something that doesn't scale, and you need to know that at one point you're going to stop doing it as a proportion of your total revenue, but you can grow massively doing a lot of service. It helps because clients know how to buy service, so the price point that they're okay to pay is much higher than if they're just buying service. It also helps having the right implementation at the clients, so they extract more value from the product. And slowly, people are going to learn how to use your product without your help. Your product is going to have better onboarding, it's going to have out-of-the-box integrations, and you'll be able to switch to a fully product mode in a couple of years. And you have super famous companies like Viva, VEEVA, now a $50 billion company. When they were doing 60 million in revenue, they were doing half of it in service. where they're doing 300 million in revenue, they were still doing like 15% in service, which is 45 million. So don't be scared of service if you're selling to the large enterprise. If you're selling to SMBs, you probably won't survive very long with service. Regarding these large clients, I've never ever seen big deals work. I've seen, and we had the question just before, I've seen a lot of companies trying to go out and find clients, small ones, and at one point there's like this life-changing deal that could happen. There is no problem chasing deals that could be life-changing. That's how deals change lives. The problem is spending much more time on these deals rather than focusing on getting one client after one client after one client. Never try to lose the control of the company, which is what we said just before. Own your strategy. You can spend one day a week on a big deal, but most likely you're going to lose it also. To know what a big deal is, you probably need to ask yourself what the maximum annual customer value of the contract can be. And it's very, very difficult for a corporate to pay you more than what your team costs. So if you have a team of 3 people, they cost like 15K per month. You're going to have a lot of trouble signing clients that are more than 50K per month, because otherwise your client should just hire the 3 people that you have and you would get the same thing. Of course, you probably wouldn't be able to hire these 3 people, but mentally, it puts a maximum level to how much you can charge. And when you'll be a 10 people company, you can maybe charge a couple 100K per year. And when you're a 100 people company, you might be able to charge $1 million per year. But before that, it's almost impossible. And it also reflects the reality of the product. 3 people can't build a product that costs that much. Pricing is also extremely important because it defines the go-to-market. So the whole topic of this talk was to define how to find clients. And so defining the pricing right in the very beginning will be instrumental in understanding how you're growing. If a client pays less than $500 per year, you have no choice but having a marketing-led organization. That means that in the beginning, you can, of course, do everything you can to find the first clients. That means spending a day with each client so that they sign. But the more you grow, the more you're going to have them on a self-service marketing-led platform. If they spend closer to 1.5 thousand, you cannot afford to do meetings. You need to do everything by phone, and you probably shouldn't do more than 1 sales. If they're closer to 5,000, then you need to close them in 1 or 2 meetings maximum. If you're moving to their office, and if you're doing telesales, you can probably do a couple meetings. And if they're spending more than 5,000 a year, then you can do everything. Of course, for 100K per year contracts, your team is going to move to their office, they're going to fly there, they're going to build marketing materials. But figuring out where you stand is very, very important. And I see a lot of people that have annual customer values around 500 euros that start to hire salespeople when it's never going to be profitable to have people for that type of products. A couple metrics. Once you have defined the persona, you have different channels that actually work. You understood that the CEO is doing most of the sales, and then you're going to start hiring people. You need to figure out what are your metrics to know if you're doing well or you're not. The most common mistake I see in the beginning is regarding the cost of acquisition for customers, because every founder tells me, oh, I get clients for 50 euros, and then they pay me 50 euros per month, and I'm going to make 1K per client every year. Every time I get this, I'm forced to ask them why they're not spending more money to get more clients. And the reality is the real cost of acquisition is not 50 euros. If they were to hire a sales guy to close contracts, you might close 1 or 2 contracts per month, which is probably a 2,000 cost of acquisition per client and not a $50 one. Don't just count leads or marketing as cost. It's of course the total cost for your company that works. The other very common mistake that I see is to assume that lifetime value is going to be the lifetime value of a client over 10 years. Like you get 1% churn per month, so he's going to stay for 10 years and you're going to make so much money. The reality is in 3 years' time, the market might change. You might have a competitor. You might churn for whatever reason. So try to validate your model with a lifetime value of 2 years, maybe 3 years at the maximum, and do all the ratios with that type of lifetime. Which brings us to payback period. Payback period is the time you need for a client to pay back the cost of acquisition. So if it costs you 100 euros to get a client, that is going to pay you 30 euros per month with 30 euros margin, like incredible product that does 100% margin. It's going to take 3.3 months to pay back the cost. This payback period is really important because it tells how much money you need to have on your bank account to grow. And the faster you grow, the more money you need. And you'll be able to get in the payback period optimizations later, introducing new pricing plans with like yearly plan, for example, which every large software company does to improve working capital requirements. And once you're there, you have the right metrics, your CAC LTV ratios are okay, your salespeople are able to sell your product, your clients are actually happy and not churning. You enter the scaling phase. And weirdly, most people are are not data driven at all on this part. The easiest thing to do to start is to get an Excel table with the names of everyone that is doing sales in the organization, and to write down every month how much revenue they have closed, and to see whether that goes up and that goes down. So you would get the cohorts and the efficiency of all your salespeople, and you will also get the time it takes to train new account executives to become fully ramped up, as they call it. Usually, it will take 3 months for a sales people that you onboard to reach the mean of the salespeople that you already have. One thing that I haven't mentioned here is that salespeople should pay themselves at least 3 times. So if you pay a sales guy 50K, he needs to bring at least 150K in revenue for the company to actually work. And if you're selling SaaS with low churn, I think a sales guy would be bringing between 1.5 and 3.5 thousand euros in monthly recurring revenue every month to be in the benchmarks of some of the best companies that we've seen. Cool. Oussama?
So we run a bit out of time, guys. I hope you enjoy. Maybe we can take a few questions. The first one is how to know when the product is mature enough and if it's the right it's the market.
We like to say that when you have product market fit, you know it. You're going to feel that your clients actually want your product, and they're going to refer it to other people, and they're going to send you emails saying, what your product does for me is amazing, but I need this, and this on top to make it absolutely incredible. So you'll just know.
Yeah. Our first potential corporate client offers to provide resources to develop the first version in exchange for a future discount on the SaaS. Should we accept this kind of deal, or should we not?
I think you should ask them to pay 50K upfront, and you develop the product for them, and then you can hire your own team and not using their resources.
Yeah.
If you use the developers of the client, you're dead.
Totally dead.
We have a company that made a corporate client pay 50K to develop an app just for them.
Yeah.
Without owning any of the IP.
Yeah. A lot of prospects ask me for samples for free, then they give no feedback. Should I at least charge the shipping cost, or do you have any other tips? Can you recommend SDR to market? Whatever.
I think you should, if you get enough feedback, it's okay, but I think you should make everyone pay a little bit, shipping plus more, like try to make money on it.
Yeah. So, and face the reality that if no one is buying it again, we just have here for the free lunch. Should you integrate? I already replied that. Blah, blah. What is your opinion about a closed beta model?
It depends a lot on the product. Often I'm scared of people that say beta because it means that the product doesn't work. But when it's a product that is critical to the operation of your clients, it's good to tell them that you're going to build it with them. And I think building FOMO and restricting access to the lucky ones is a very efficient way to create a community of first believers.
Should we adopt a different pricing strategy for certain type of customer? Example, we are selling an API to Hilton and a small boutique hotel.
Yeah, definitely. It's feature gating is important, and you're going to figure out with time how to extract as much value as possible from all the clients. For example, having high SLAs for Hilton, you can charge them like 20K per month extra.
You said during your call closing 1.5 to 3.5 points per month for salesperson in SaaS with no churn. What do you mean by point?
That was my English accent. I meant 1.5 to 3.5 thousand euros per month in monthly recurring revenue.
Yeah, it means that. For marketplace, do you have a keys to protect your product from being copied by competitors when it's a product that can easily be copied?
Marketplace have one thing that is magical, is that once they start flying, there is a network effect that makes the product better than anyone else. So don't really worry, and there is nothing to protect in a marketplace. Just supply and demand that match together.
Exactly. One last question. Is there, oh no, better one. We plan to launch our product with an MVP to get some feedback of the market and then try to develop our in-house software after securing a bit of revenue. What do you think about this strategy? With a no code, MVP with no code before doing the real launch.
As long as you understand what challenge it is as long as you understand that getting the tech in-house at one point is important. I think you should definitely test the market with no-code tools. They're the best way to experiment fast with new features.
Exactly.
And it's incredible the number of companies that I've seen in the last 6 months that have built their MVP on Bubble or Retool.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Balthazar. Thank you very much, everyone. So now you can connect on your left. You have a little networking icon. You can click on it, and here you will meet some random people that are interested. Try to be casual, try to be nice, try to share, and enjoy. See you very soon for more workshops. We enjoy a lot doing this format. We are going to do a lot of them. I hope you enjoy too. If you're interested by the family, don't hesitate to apply on thefamily.co/apply. We are still welcoming few startups for the next batch. And we are very, very excited about the quality of the next batch. So if you are ambitious and you want to build a scalable business, don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you very much and have a great day. Bye-bye.